There are attacks forged in anger, others shaped by training. Some are born in desperation, but Goku's Ultra Instinct Kamehameha, it transcends all of that. This isn't a move made stronger by rage or willpower, it's a moment. The meeting point between instinct and inevitability. When Goku faced Jiren in the Tournament of Power, he had nothing left. Super Saiyan Blue was overwhelmed. Kaioken couldn't close the gap. Every transformation, every strategy, every scream had failed. So Goku stopped trying. He let go. And in that surrender, something ancient stirred, something deeper than strength. His breathing slowed, his thoughts fell silent, his body stopped acting on intention and started acting on truth. He didn't move, he flowed. Like water, like gravity, like the universe had decided it was time. The Kamehameha didn't erupt from him, it didn't roar, it unfolded. Smooth, effortless, inevitable. The energy didn't scream, it hummed. And in that stillness was something more powerful than any transformation. Clarity. Jiren, the monolith of discipline and power, didn't flinch out of fear, he paused out of recognition. Because what stood before him wasn't rage or ego, it was balance. When the beam struck, it wasn't an explosion, it was a resolution. The clash didn't shake the sky, it didn't need to. It answered the question the universe had been silently asking since the beginning of the tournament. What happens when a mortal stops trying to be a god and simply becomes aligned with everything around him? Ultra Instinct doesn't punch harder, it removes the need to punch at all. And the Kamehameha in Goku's hands stopped being a move, it became a message. Power isn't always found in screaming louder. Sometimes it's found in silence. And that's what made this attack so devastating. It wasn't a cry for victory, it was the quiet whisper of inevitability. In most stories, the strongest attack comes with fanfare, a final scream, a last-ditch effort backed by a lifetime of pain. But not Saitama, not the man who broke his limit and found nothing waiting on the other side. His serious punch isn't terrifying because of what it does, it's terrifying because of what it says. When Boris, the galactic tyrant, unleashed a final desperate attack powerfully enough to vaporize a planet, the entire world seemed to stop. The sky split, the earth trembled. A being who had scoured the stars for a worthy fight had finally found one, or so he thought. And Saitama, he barely blinked. No transformation, no rage, just a shift in posture and a sigh. He threw one punch, not angry, not showy, just serious, and the attack vanished. Not resisted, not countered, it was simply gone. Followed immediately by Boros himself, broken beyond recognition, eyes wide with satisfaction and confusion, because he believed he finally found his equal, but the truth, the tragedy, was that he hadn't. Saitama didn't fight at full strength. He didn't even come close. This wasn't a battle, it was a gesture, a moment of mild effort, just enough to end the threat. That's what makes the serious punch so haunting. It doesn't just defeat the enemy, it dismantles their narrative. Boros spent his life chasing meaning through conflict, and in the end, the one man who could challenge him didn't even care. The punch wasn't a finale, it was a shrug. And that's why it's one of the most overpowered attacks in anime. Not because it shattered a beam, not because it ended a life, but because it removed the point of trying. When you give everything you are, and someone else ends it with nothing but a half-hearted swing, what's left? Not pain, not defeat, just emptiness. Not all attacks are meant to kill. Some are designed to overwhelm, to break, to humiliate. But Hollow Purple doesn't do any of that, because it doesn't attack you, it removes you. It doesn't scorch or burn or explode in light. It's not fire, lighting, or even energy in the traditional sense. It's a concept, the literal absence of presence, a contradiction made real, a technique that says you shouldn't exist and then acts accordingly. Gojo Satoru, the man at the center of Jujutsu Kaisen, doesn't just wield power, he is power. Wrapped in a blindfold and draped in elegance, he doesn't scream when he fights. He doesn't throw himself into rage. He operates with the precision of a surgeon and the perspective of a god. And when he casts Hollow Purple, it doesn't feel like a super move. It feels like reality rewriting itself. Red repels, blue attracts, but together, when opposites collide, they cancel the rules of space itself. The result is Hollow Purple, a void in motion, a ripple of deletion. When it fires, it doesn't flash across the screen, it glides, calm and inevitable. The air folds around it, trees don't break, they vanish. Buildings don't crumble, they stop being. It's not speed that makes Hollow Purple terrifying, it's the pause it creates in the world around it. That flicker of hesitation where even time seems to ask, what is this? And Gojo, he never raises his voice. He never tenses his muscles. He simply points with one hand like he's flicking away dust. And the problem is no longer there. It's not rage, it's refinement. That's what makes it so disturbing. That a force so absolute is delivered with such ease. No effort, no ceremony, just the casual removal of something or someone the universe no longer requires. Hollow Purple doesn't kill, it corrects. It's like watching a spelling error disappear from a typed sentence. Clean, efficient, final. When you first see it, it doesn't feel like watching a powerful jutsu, it feels like witnessing a personal extinction event. Like watching someone be quietly removed from the story. No legacy, no ashes, just the hollow space where something used to be. Because in Gojo's world, there is no need to overpower the enemy. He simply undoes them. There are attacks that shake the earth, and then there are attacks that break the spirit. When Madara Uchiha entered the battlefield, he didn't come as a man, he came as a storm, wearing a human face, a myth dragged from the past and painted across the sky. Shinobi from every corner of the world stood beneath him, the strongest warriors, the proudest clans. And then, with a gesture that didn't even require effort, the heavens cracked open. A meteor. No prelude, no thread, just the sky turning dark, and time folding inward. For a moment, no one moved, because there was no strategy for this, no training, no counter, just the understanding that something wrong was falling toward them, something that shouldn't be possible, and yet there it was, growing larger with every breath. It wasn't just rock, it wasn't just fire, it was judgment. And somehow, they stopped it. With everything they had, jutsu, steel, desperation, they pulled it from the brink. Lives were spent like coins, sweat turned to blood. And just as they thought they stopped the end, as they let themselves believe they'd bought a chance at survival, Madara dropped another one. No words, no grin, no drama, just a calm, almost bored reminder. I am not your enemy. I am your ending. The second meteor didn't fall as a punishment, it fell as a lesson. That resistance was foolish, that hope was a myth, that even miracles can be buried beneath a second, heavier truth. Because that meteor wasn't about destruction, it was about dominance. It was philosophy written in stone and hurled from the stars. You are insects. I have indulged your struggle long enough. And as the crater spread and the survivors wept, they didn't cry just for the fallen, they cried for themselves, for the realization that nothing they trained for, nothing they believed in, mattered anymore. Because when a man like Madara starts throwing planets at you, what else is there to fight for? The second meteor didn't just crush the battlefield, it crushed the idea that anyone but him was still writing the story. Some final attacks are loud. They shatter mountains, tear holes through planets, and leave behind trails of fire and thunder. But Mugetsu is quiet. It doesn't erupt, it descends, like a certain closing over a stage, like a whisper that says, "This is the end." And what makes it so powerful isn't just the damage it causes, it's the silence it leaves behind. When Ichigo Kurosaki faced Aizen, the man who twisted fate, ascended beyond godhood and treated souls like pieces on a board, he didn't bring ego, he didn't bring vengeance, he brought finality. In that moment, Ichigo wasn't a boy fighting for justice, he was a shadow, the last stand of someone willing to give up everything for one swing that would change everything. To unlock Mugetsu, Ichigo embraced the final Getsuga Tensho, a transformation that didn't amplify his power, it sacrificed it. In that form, he was no longer a soul reaper, he wasn't even human anymore. He was a walking goodbye. Hair black as night, body wrapped in the aura of nothingness, Ichigo stepped forward and drew his final blade. It wasn't made of steel or fire, it was made of oblivion, and with one motion, not a roar, not a scream, just clarity, he unleashed it. Mugetsu doesn't crash, it washes. It rolls over everything in its path like a tidal wave of shadow. It doesn't strike down Aizen, it consumes him. The battlefield disappears beneath it, the light fades, and when it clears, Ichigo is still standing. But his power is gone. Not drained, not suppressed, gone. And that's what makes Mugetsu unforgettable. It wasn't an attack to win a fight, it was an offering. The surrender of strength, identity, and legacy for the sake of peace. Ichigo didn't want glory. He didn't care about being remembered, he just wanted it to end. For the people he loved, for the world he protected, so he stepped into darkness, not to destroy, but to relieve. Mugetsu isn't a technique. It's a farewell letter written in shadow. It tells us something no shonen battle usually dares to say, that the greatest power isn't keeping your strength. It's knowing when to let go. Because sometimes the strongest a hero can do is to walk away. There are attacks that change the tide of a battle, and then there are attacks that change what the battle means. When Yami Sukehiro sliced through the fabric of space, it wasn't just another technique, it was a crack in the structure of the world itself. A rift not just in reality, but in expectation. He, the hardened captain who'd seen death, stared down demons, and carried the weight of a broken past, didn't use that slash to end the fight. He used it to open a door, a path for someone else, and into that void stepped Asta, a boy born without magic in a kingdom where magic is everything. Asta, the orphan mocked for dreaming, the outcast who trained until his arms gave out, the child the world wrote off before he even picked up a sword. He didn't hesitate, didn't question. With a scream that echoed like defiance itself, he charged through the tear in space, swinging a blade forged not from power, but from rejection. The enemy that faced wasn't just strong, it was a devil, a being whose mere presence twisted gravity and threatened to raise them where they stood. And yet, two men, one feared, one dismissed, came together not just with strength, but with trust. Yami opened the impossible, Asta answered it. Their strike didn't just cut through a demon's heart, it cut through the belief that greatness is born, that you need a gift to matter, that power is reserved for the chosen, because in that instant, a magicless boy stood shoulder to shoulder with a legend, and they won. The dimension slash didn't just split space, it split the narrative, the idea that only those with the right blood, the right talent, the right start deserve to reach the top. Asta didn't have the right star, he just never stopped moving. And Yami didn't give him that moment out of pity, he gave it to him out of faith. the kind of faith that turns a misfit into a symbol, the kind of faith that makes a single attack feel like a revolution. Because the truth is, this wasn't just a combo move, it was a declaration that power doesn't belong to the gifted. It belongs to those who never stop swinging, even when the world says they shouldn't be holding a sword at all. Not every attack needs a blade. Not every war is started with a weapon. Sometimes it only takes a word. Lelouch v. Britannia was a strategist, a revolutionary, a liar cloaked in idealism. But his most powerful move didn't come from intellect or strategy. It came from arrogance, wrapped in a joke, a single sentence tossed out in frustration, spoken in the wrong moment and heard by the wrong person. "Kill them all," he said to Euphemia, a throwaway line, a mistake, and Gias listened, obeyed. No questions, no delay, just instant, irreversible obedience. Euphemia, the symbol of hope, the one royal who believed peace could be achieved with compassion, not conquest. The one person Lelouch may have truly loved. She smiled that same soft, gentle smile and began killing. Not out of rage, not out of control, but because he told her to. That's the horror of Gias. It doesn't burn or explode, it rewrites. It takes love and turns it into murder, peace into chaos, innocence into war. Thousands died, the blood of civilians spilled across the land Euphemia had sworn to protect. Not because of a plan gone wrong, not because of an enemy's move, but because Lelouch, for one careless moment, forgot the weight of his own power. The Gias didn't amplify Lelouch's genius. It exposed his humanity, his flaws, his impulsiveness, his overconfidence. In that moment, the boy who thought he was rewriting the world realized he couldn't even control the pen in his own hand. The massacre that followed wasn't political, it wasn't strategic, it was a tragedy born from a whisper. And that's why this moment hits harder than any explosion ever could, because Euphemia didn't die as a villain, she died as a victim of love, of power, of a system neither she nor Lelouch fully understood. The most overpowered attacks aren't the ones that destroy the body, they are the ones that destroy meaning, that corrupt what should be pure, that shatter what should never be touched. And as Lelouch watched the chaos unfold, watched his own words turn a peaceful dream into a nightmare, he didn't just lose Euphemia, he lost himself. Because sometimes the most powerful weapon in the world is a voice that doesn't know its limit. It didn't begin with fire, it began with footsteps. One after another, measured, relentless. Not hurried, not chaotic, just coming. Stretching across the horizon, titans, colossal, faceless, numberless, marching across the world like funeral drums sent by a broken god. They didn't roar, they didn't sprint, they didn't need to because the world didn't fall in one blow. It was walked over, slowly, systematically, without hesitation, without remorse. This was the rumbling, not a battle, not a technique, a genocide carved into the very bones of the planet. A storm that didn't pass, it remained until nothing was left. And at the center of it all, Eren Yeager. Not the hero, not the monster, just a boy who looked at the world and realized it would never let him exist in peace. He tried everything, trust, war, diplomacy, but no matter what path he walked, it led to the same place, back into the cage, and so he chose the only thing left, freedom. Twisted through trauma, sharpened into extinction, he crushed cities, nations, cultures, memories, history itself, not because he hated them, but because they stood between him and the only thing he ever wanted. A future where his people didn't have to die to deserve to live. Watching the rumbling unfold doesn't feel exhilarating. It feels like watching the slow erosion of hope. Every step is a question whispered into the air. How far would you go to protect your own, and what would you become in the process? There is no glory here, no screaming hero racing to stop destruction, just a world that didn't listen when a child cried, and now listens as he remakes it into silence. The rumbling isn't overpowered because of how much it destroys, it's overpowered because of what it reveals. that when a broken boy gains the power of a god, the world doesn't end with a bang, it ends with a march, one step after another until everything is gone and all that's left is the sound of footsteps fading into dust.